Hi, I wanted to do a video on how I do a bath for our Bergamascos, and wanted to show you my setup. I get a lot of emails, messages asking how to give baths, what methods, and everyone does it differently. So I just want to point out only the way I do it that I have found that works for me. So this is just a little corner of my basement, nothing fancy, but I have the capacity to dry and bathe 3 dogs at a time, pretty much. I could do more if I set up another crate or X-Pen, but I have my grooming table here, but I don't need that. I do have a grooming table in here that I usually use to pick out anything from the coat before the bath. If I have to do any trimming, any brushing, I'll do it on the table. I have ability to dry 3 at once, so I'm using just a regular extra large wire crate. And I have 3 industrial fans. This one here I use to share between the 2 crates. So it has these hoses that come out and you can hook the ends of the hoses up anywhere you want. And then I have a huge air moving janitorial type fan that's also very heavy duty and very heavy. And then this fan, which is my favorite, it's the least powerful of the 3, but this one offers a little bit of heat, and it's not really heat, it's warm air, basically, but I find it dries a lot faster with this fan. The other thing that I found really important to the whole bathing process is this wet dry vac. It's an Armor All 2 HP peak maximum, one that I got on Amazon for, believe it or not, I think $35. It's small, but this is all you really need if you're just using it for the coat. And I use it to get all the water out at the end of the bath before putting them under the dryer. It cuts drying time by a couple of hours. The important thing about this grooming sink is that it has these in the bottom, these grates. And I found that even when I used to go to the do-it-yourself places, if it didn't have the grates on the bottom, the Bergamascos were just sitting in a pool of water, and so it was really hard to get all the water out of them at the end of the bath. So these have been the best thing ever. Okay, Faji, go ahead. Up. So I'm going to give Fajia a bath today. She has a show tomorrow, and she's been out playing in the mud for at least a month now. And it depends on the type of coat your dog has. Some dogs are woollier than others. Woollier dogs will need more time to dry. They also might retain a little bit more dirt. So I'm waiting for the water to get to the right temperature. You don't want water too cold or too hot. I usually use like a cool, warm, lukewarm, I guess, but on the cooler side. I have her kind of tethered here. I don't really need to, but I want to prevent her from lying down if I can, just because she will try to get away with it if I don't have that on her. But if you can see the grate at the bottom, like I was showing earlier, you can see how she's never sitting in water. So I know this is not practical for everyone, but if you do have a grooming sink, I highly recommend those inserts. And if you go to a do-it-yourself place and give a bath, if they have them, it makes it a lot easier. If they don't, I just find it almost impossible to get rid of the water sometimes. So I'm just rinsing her, getting her generally wet. Now, I know a lot of people say you can't bathe a Bergamasco often, but I don't find that to be true. I think a lot of it just depends on the drying time, and if you don't dry the dog properly, you will end up with a mildew problem that will be worse than what you started with. And I think that's where the problem is that people who do wash them frequently, if they're not getting them completely dry, and you may think they feel dry on the outside, but if the inside of the flocks are not dry and they mildew, it is a problem that is very hard to get rid of. You can give all the vinegar baths in the world that you want, but you may never really get rid of the smell completely. Now, if you can see, the water coming out of her is not dirty. It's clear. So there's not a lot of dirt I need to remove from her coat. It's more of a, I want to just get her a little bit brighter and cleaner looking in the front where she digs and stuff. But she's not really dirty. I thought she'd be a lot dirtier than this. So a couple of things I have on hand. I have white vinegar. I do have baking soda, and I have the soap that I'm going to use to wash her, which is this stuff. And it's actually not a soap. I shouldn't say that, but it's Eucalan. It's a wool wash, actually. Do not use Wool Light. Wool Light's not the same. But this, and there's another brand of a wool wash that's actually very good. But the thing about this is it's what you use to clean a sheepskin or any kind of wool blankets. It does not take the oils out of the coat. It is concentrated, so you just need a tiny, tiny bit. But it leaves the coat super soft. Mine is unscented, and I never have a problem with it. I could bathe her every week, and it doesn't change the texture of her coat, the feel of her coat. I got that bottle on Amazon as well. I think it was about 40 bucks, but it's lasted me. I've had it for at least 8 months so far, and it's not even halfway done. And I bathe all the time. You really only need a little bit. So I don't saturate her with a lot of soap. I wash her basically where she's dirty. So the front here, where I see a little bit of discoloration on the front of her coat, I'll wash that. And I just, kind of the way you would wash a blanket, and you kind of rub parts of it to itself. Another thing you can use, which I like, is a curry comb for a horse. It's like a rubber hand brush, and you can actually work the flocks like that with the curry comb. And I'll get her legs, which is the worst part, where there's a little bit of mud at the bottom. And get all these little flocks here. Now, I've done any trimming that I wanted to do to her coat before the bath. You can do it either way. If you have areas that you want to remove or clean up, you can do it before or after. I like to do it before, that way when she's done, she's just done. I'm not going to use any vinegar on her. I really save that for exceptionally bad baths, like where she's really gross. I never really use baking soda. I have used it on males who get a lot of urine underneath the coat. That's definitely helpful with that. But with females, I don't find I really need to do any crazy cleaning stuff. So just, I use the wool wash, and that's pretty much it for her. Another thing is any coat separating that you need to do should be done before the bath. So make sure that before your bath happens, all your areas are separated to the skin. That way you don't end up with areas that are difficult to dry and thick. You should be able to see in between all your flocks like that. I'm careful not to get any soap in her eyes. I don't put it on the top of the head. I'll wet the top of the head, but I never put soap on it. I mean, I really don't need to. And she's pretty good about, she's pretty good about letting me do this. If you have a dog that fights or that doesn't stay still, you can always use a cup and fill it with water and gently pour it instead of trying to spray them in the face. Some dogs don't like it. She's used to it, so. Really important to make sure you rinse all of the cleaning, whatever you use, vinegar, baking soda, whatever wash you're using. Really important that you get all of it out of the coat and don't leave any residue. One way that I decide which parts of the coat I'm going to wash, because believe it or not, if I wet all of this, it'll add a couple of hours to the drying time, is I'll just spray a little bit. If I say, oh, I don't know if this is just discoloration or actual dirt, I'll spray it a little, and the water comes out completely clear. So it's not dirt, so I'm not going to bother soaping all this up and washing it. if I don't have to. When I'm washing her rear end, I want to make sure I'm getting off any poop or anything like that, or any urine stains that might be on her coat. And so I spent a little bit more time back here. I do a little bit of trimming around the rear, not enough for it to be noticeable, but I try to get rid of any flocks that are in the path of going to the bathroom. Now, if I wasn't showing her as much as I do, then I probably would be a little bit more. I would remove more, but for the sake of leaving her coat sort of looking the way it should for show, I don't take very much off, so I clean it more often. Now, before bathing, I've already taken out any debris from the coat. I've used a slicker brush. I've already brushed out her face and her head. But her face and head, I keep brushed out all the time. It doesn't flock on its own that easily. So I can go 3 weeks without ever combing it or brushing it or anything, and it'll stay the way it is for the most part, unless it gets wet and then starts to mat, or just from her eating or drinking. But I try to make sure that all that stuff is done before her bath, just to make the bath easier. And that way I'm not having to pick any debris out of the coat while we're bathing. So any sticks, pine needles, whatever from our farm that would normally be in her coat, I've already gone through last night and removed all of that. And as you can see, the water is it's squeezing out clear. So there's really no dirt left in this coat. There's no mud. It's just a matter of rinsing the Eucalan wash out now. I'm not going to put any vinegar on her. It does cut the drying time a little bit, but I find it also dries the coat out, so I don't use it unless I have to. The vinegar, like I said before, I reserve mostly if there's mildew issue. If the dog really smells bad before the bath, then I'll hit them up with the vinegar. I'll leave the coat soaking in white vinegar for, 10 minutes or so before rinsing it out. I don't put vinegar near the face though, because you can imagine how harsh vinegar smells and how uncomfortable that must be to a dog to breathe the fumes from it. So I'm not going to wash this middle section of her. It's damp now just from the sink, but this will all dry quickly. Just want to show you how it's clean. There's really no need for me to wash it. Her coat smells beautiful. It has no odor. I'm not going to do anything with this. So we've done the face, the head, the chest, which is always for me the worst part, and the front legs, back legs, and her whole rear end. So I think we've covered everything that she needs for the show, and I'm going to do the next step now. Before I use the shop vac on her coat, I'm going to squeeze as much out by hand as I can. Oh, and there's still a little bit of soap here, so I'm just going to do a quick rinse of that part. Now, when I didn't use the shop vac, before I had the shop vac for this, I would wring this coat out for an hour until I couldn't squeeze another drop. I'm not going to spend that much time on it at all. Just basically enough to get most of the water out, and I'll let the vacuum take care of the rest. When you wring out, it's good to start at the top, work your way down. Since all the water is coming from the top down, you'll always have the most water at the bottom of the flocks. You might need to do this a few times. If you don't have a shop vac, then do this for as long as you can, and then do the same thing with a towel. And just kind of use a towel and squeeze as much water as you can out before putting your dog under the fan. Okay, so this is going to go on. And I'm just going to run this over her flocks. Especially letting it kind of suck in the bottom of the flock while I'm holding this. The suction is not so strong that it can hurt her or pull the coat, but just enough to get the water out. I want to show you how effective this is and how much time this saves me. So I've only done, I don't know, 3 minutes of this. And if I squeeze these flocks now, absolutely nothing comes out, not a drop. So it is definitely a huge help and time saver. Okay, so after vacuuming, at this point I will go over her with a towel just to kind of get any little debris or dirt out of the face, kind of off. I will brush her face out again, but not until she's dry. I won't do anything else to the coat until it's dry, so that'll be in a few hours. Okay, so we're ready to dry her. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that I usually put like 6 or 7 towels at the bottom. As the top layers get wet, I go in and remove them. And that way she's always on a dry towel. If it stays damp, it'll just prolong her drying. Okay, so let's get her in there. Come on, Fudge. So I'm going to steal the nozzle from this fan since I'm only washing her today. Give her more air on this side. Turn this on. And it'll probably take about 4 or 5 hours till she's completely 100% dry. I like to surround her with fans, so depending on, it doesn't matter if she turns around or not, she'll always get air in some direction. And that's it.